Hello, this is Christina again and welcome back to my channel. Now, I imagine you're probably wondering why I'm trying to reduce this template, which I made nicely by just placing a piece of paper over the screen and overlining the original artwork there. Now, I've just realized that at some point I would have to thin the edges of this plant, so unless I reduce the template, it's probably going to work out very bulky and not very attractive looking. So, you know, as with many of my tutorials that I run on this channel, I just wing my way through it and I hope for the best, and most of the time I seem to kind of get away with it. But this plant was not as kind. It was quite tricky to do, and in places it kind of put me into a bit of a panic, because being this size, made out of clay that does go hard, and the same goes for Gumpaste, I had to work quite quickly, and without pre-planning carefully I had to decide what to do first, and I've made quite a few mistakes. One of the mistakes was not to have super glue at hand to glue the carcass together, because I think super glue would have been a sure thing to work, whereas this glue I did have at hand did end up working beautifully and did work out to be easier to use than super glue, but it may not have. So super glue is a good thing to use here, as is this glue I'm using. And so this the middle stem does have to be a different wire. It has to be gauge 20, probably not 18, for it to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit less thick, but gauge 20. The bigger the gauge, the thinner the wire. So 18 is thicker than 20 and less flexible, but 20 is a beautiful wire to work in because it holds a lot of weight, but you already could bend it to your shape. So 20 in the middle and 24 to the sides. This is what I should have used. What I did use didn't work at all, and I had to fix it, and I will show you how I fixed it. But yeah, first mistake. Now this is the shop bought paste, and the trick here would be to really be careful spreading it out, because it has to be thin enough at the edges and yet thick enough in the middle to accommodate obviously the carcass. So I found that finding the balance for it quite tricky, and so the idea is to roll out your clay as evenly and true to shape as you can. And when you start cutting your shape out, a little bit of practice, if you haven't done it before, might be a good thing here, because sometimes when you cut it in the wrong direction, your clay or your paste, it kind of goes a little bit crinkly, and you don't want that crinkle to fall on your shape. The crinkle is best off falling on the clay that you remove, just like this. Now the question to consider here when you just start to attach the carcass is, what do I do first? Do I attach this carcass, or do I thin the petals? And, well, petal in this case, do I thin it and do I tidy up all these cutouts? Because obviously when you cut it out with a paring knife, the edges are not very accurate, and the best thing to do is to use a wet brush, just some water, and tidy up the edges, which I didn't do, and I really regret not doing, because what I did, I tried to attach the carcass first, and then I did all the thinning, and I should have and I had to do it the other way around. And this is what happens when you don't think it through properly. And also I did a very silly thing. I tried to put glue on the leaf and then put the wire carcass in, whereas actually it would have been so much easier just to put some glue on the carcass and then maybe add a little bit where you had to. It shouldn't really affect the coloring of this paste, of this sleeve eventually, but it would have been so much easier to just do it the right way around. So talk about mistakes and how much this is actually a tutorial. Now I'm doing this to just roll out very thin little kind of strips, round strips, to put over my seams, over where the wire is. And this method is something you would use for cakes. Any of you who make cakes, give me a shout. Do you remember doing those bars on your once so trendy bird cages? This is the technique. This technique just assures that your little tubes are nice and round all the way across. And this bit is a very, very tricky bit to do, I found. It takes some getting used to. It probably is easier done with gum paste, but yeah, it's not easy to do, not in my opinion. So again, you edit like 5 hours or 3 hours of film to 10 minutes and it makes it look so easy, but I am telling you, this seemingly easy plant, it's not easy at all. I would also say that it's easier to do all of this with cold porcelain, because as you will see in a minute, these all lines, they could be smoothened down with a bit of water. You would not be able to do that to a gum paste. And now I'm just trying to repeat what I imagine to be a natural line in the palm leaf in real life. And so just to flatten it really, so it doesn't look like a lot of tubes of clay just stuck on top of a leaf. I imagine this whole work could really do with improvement. This is my first try, as I mentioned, and it could be made easier, could be made more delicate and more graceful with some practice. And here I'm trying to color in the wire. Sometimes this kind of technique works. In this case, it didn't. It may have worked if I used lighter wire. So much for me using and rejoicing in the idea that I happen to have gauge 24 in green. It really did me no favors. If I had the white one, it would have been so much easier if I had a white wire. But anyway, so this is very important, that you really try to put a bit of practice and make these little strings as neat as you can. So here I am trying to correct my mistake of using the wrong wire for the base, and I'm adding gauge 20. Now, for those of you who've not seen anything on my channel before, I pretty much just make tutorials on flowers all the time, every week. Occasionally I throw in some other videos discussing techniques, gum paste and so on. I work in cold porcelain predominantly these days, but cold porcelain is a clay that lasts, doesn't break. It kind of allows for detailed botanical sculpture instead of just making something for cakes. But since cakes and sugar flowers were my initial medium, I use sugar flower techniques whenever I can. So if it's your thing, please subscribe. That really helps my channel. And obviously don't subscribe if you're not planning to watch. That would be silly. But if you love making flowers with your own hands the way I do and the way the regular viewers of this channel do, please make sure you subscribe, share this and other videos on your social media, participate in comments at least sometimes. All of this would help this channel to grow, would help me to produce more videos, and would help for this cold porcelain flower art just grow a little bit bigger in UK, because as it is, it's really teeny and it's a real shame. At this, I'm going to leave you to my background music for a bit, and next week I'm going to be showing you how to tone, how to color this leaf into a blend of different colors using oil paints. So hopefully that would be interesting, and it's enough for a separate video. And bye bye for now, see you next week.